pressure is growing on the UK government to draw up emergency measures to protect households and businesses from high energy costs moving into winter. Household bills have been soaring and are set to rise further, with tomorrow's announcements expected by the energy regulator. They will announce the latest cap on energy prices. Let's bring into the conversation Bloomberg's Lizzie Burden here in London, who's been investigating the UK side of this initially. Lizzie, what are we expecting from Ofgem then tomorrow? Because we've seen this cap rise and rise.
Yes, we're going to see the price cap for the fourth quarter for consumers, and the estimate is that it's going to rise 80%, so that the average energy bill for households is more than
Ed Miliband tells pubs to switch off their fridges. Is this Labour's most tone-deaf energy policy yet? Britain is in the grip of another energy crisis. Oil prices have smashed through $100 a barrel for the first time in 4 years. The Middle East is spiraling, Iran has effectively choked off the Strait of Hormuz, and the pub sector, already limping after years of post-pandemic pain, is staring down the barrel of nearly £170 million more on their annual energy bills. And what does Ed Miliband, Labour's net zero champion, energy secretary extraordinaire, have to say about all of this? Turn off your beer fridges overnight. Yes, you read that correctly. Welcome to British Energy, the channel where we cut through the political noise and give you the straight, unfiltered truth about what is happening in British politics and policy. If you are new here, subscribe now. Hit that button. This channel exists to hold power to account, and we are only getting started. Now, back to the fridges.
I live off food banks. My brother helps me top up my meter.
Mary is a working mum of 4 from Stirlingshire. She says almost every penny she earns is spent on trying to keep her house warm.
Just getting up and going to work knowing it's going to go in a meter is so difficult. Anything for £30 to £50 a day. My TV doesn't even work, no tumble dryer, no hot tub at my back garden. That's just my normal boiler.
Scottish Power discovered a problem with Mary's boiler, but she's still waiting for a replacement. She's worried about how she'll cope in the months ahead.
Just dreading the cost going up so much because it's just going to get worse and worse. I've got over £2,000 in rent arrears. It's either feed my meter or pay my rent.
Mary is just one of thousands of households across the country concerned as household budgets face their biggest challenge yet. Tomorrow, the energy price cap will increase, meaning average bills will rise by almost £700, from £1,300 to almost £2,000 a year.
It's happening because the price of wholesale gas on the global market has been really high. The prices started to increase last year as a result of economies opening up around the world after the COVID pandemic, but it's been further exacerbated by things like the war in Ukraine.
42. Jean lives on her own in Glasgow on a state pension.
Over £390 for my gas, and the same for my electricity, £390 as well. That's a big jump, and I'm worrying about it, you know.
And as for students like Povilas, higher bills are an additional stress on top of studies.
Me and my flatmate got an energy bill last month that was in the region of £360, which we were not expecting. We were expecting it to be around 160 max. I need to cut back on certain luxuries and things like that, as well as certain types of foods.
The Scottish and UK governments have announced measures to ease the crisis, but for many it won't be enough. Citizens Advice Scotland says anyone who is struggling should seek advice.
The Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, a rather grand name for a department that is apparently very concerned about your chilled lager, announced this week that hundreds more pubs, restaurants, and hotels will soon gain access to a free government energy saving tool. The tool, delivered by a company called Zero Carbon Services and backed by £350,000 of taxpayer money, is designed to help businesses in the hospitality sector identify where they are wasting energy overnight. Real-time alerts, it flags unnecessary electricity use from fridges, ovens, extraction systems, lamps, the whole lot. The government claims it helped 90 hospitality businesses cut their average energy bills by almost £2,500 during a 12-month trial, slashing overnight energy consumption by up to 66% in some cases. A pub in Bromley, South London, was held up as the flagship success story. They cut energy usage by 26%, £48 saved per week, nearly £2,500 a year back in the pocket. That is not nothing. In a sector where margins are razor thin, where the difference between surviving January and closing in February can genuinely come down to a few £100, £2,500 matters enormously. Mark Chapman, the CEO at Zero Carbon Services, put it rather well. Saving around £2,000 a year is roughly the equivalent of the profit from selling thousands of pints. That is real money for real businesses. So let's be fair here, because this is what separates serious political commentary from mere point scoring. The tool itself is not inherently ridiculous. Overnight energy waste is a genuine issue in the hospitality sector. Ovens left idling, extraction fans running through the small hours when no one is cooking, lights blazing in empty dining rooms. These are inefficiencies that cost businesses money and serve absolutely no purpose. If a piece of technology can identify those waste points and alert owners to them, that is genuinely useful. But, and this is a very substantial but, the optics of this announcement are catastrophically misjudged, and the political framing around it is frankly breathtaking in its audacity. Stay with us, because this next part is important. We are at a moment of acute energy crisis. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical choke points in global oil and gas trade, has been effectively blockaded by Iran. The consequences have been immediate and severe. Oil prices last week exceeded $100 a barrel, the first time that has happened in 4 years. Businesses across Britain are facing surging costs, and the hospitality sector, which includes your local pub, your neighborhood restaurant, your weekend hotel, is projected to absorb nearly £170 million more in energy costs per year as a direct result of this disruption.
This is the context in which the government chose to announce a tool that suggests pubs might want to consider switching off their beer fridges at night. The contrast between the scale of the crisis and the scale of the solution on offer is difficult to overstate. £350,000 of government funding, a piece of software, advice about fridges, set against a £170 million annual increase in costs across the sector, set against oil prices that have not been this high in 4 years, set against a geopolitical crisis that none of Britain's pub landlords have any control over whatsoever. Industry Minister Chris McDonald did attempt to contextualize the announcement in broader terms. He pointed to what he called the government's clean power mission, arguing that the conflict in the Middle East is yet another reminder that Britain must end its dependence on fossil fuel markets it does not control. The transition to clean, homegrown power, he argued, is the long-term route to energy sovereignty. The government also announced a £53 million support package for vulnerable heating oil customers this week, which is at least a more substantial intervention. And here is where the politics become genuinely interesting, because McDonald and Miliband are not entirely wrong in their diagnosis, even if their prescription and their timing are deeply questionable. Britain's vulnerability to Middle Eastern oil price shocks is structural. It is baked into the country's energy architecture. Every time there is a crisis in the Gulf, every time a tanker route is disrupted, every time OPEC decides to tighten supply, Britain feels the pain. This is not new. It is not a Labour problem or a Conservative problem. It is a consequence of decades of energy policy that prioritized cheap imported fossil fuels over domestic energy security. The argument that transitioning to domestically generated clean energy insulates Britain from these external shocks is a legitimate one. Wind power generated off the coast of Scotland does not care about events in Tehran. Solar installations in the English countryside are not affected by what happens in the Strait of Hormuz. That argument has genuine strategic merit, and it deserves to be taken seriously. But, and again, this but carries considerable weight. You cannot tell a publican in Bromley who is facing a £170 million sector-wide energy bill increase that the solution is to wait for the clean energy transition to materialize. That transition is a decade-long project at minimum. The energy bill arrives next quarter. The gap between the long-term strategic vision and the immediate practical reality facing businesses right now is vast, and this government has not yet demonstrated that it fully appreciates the urgency of that gap. If you are finding this analysis valuable, this is exactly what British Energy is here to do. We do not do cheerleading. We do not do tribalism. We go where the evidence takes us, and we ask the questions that deserve to be asked. Subscribe to the channel. It takes 5 seconds, and it genuinely helps us keep doing this work. There is also a deeper political tension embedded in this story that is worth drawing out. Ed Miliband has staked his political reputation, and in many respects Labour's broader reputation, on the net zero agenda. He believes in it with a conviction that is, whatever you think of his policies, clearly sincere. And that conviction drives him to frame almost every energy policy question through the lens of the clean transition. The spike in fossil fuel prices becomes an argument for renewables. The pub energy crisis becomes an opportunity to promote efficiency tools. The Middle East conflict becomes a justification for decarbonization. That framing is not dishonest, but it can tip into something that feels tone-deaf. as though every crisis, no matter how immediate and painful, is ultimately an advertisement for the same pre-existing agenda. When people are struggling with their bills right now, being told that the real answer is a long-term structural transformation can feel dismissive, even contemptuous. Politics is not just about being right in the abstract. It is about being heard. And right now, a significant number of Britain's business owners do not feel heard by this government. The 525 establishments that will benefit from this tool, and bear in mind that is 525 out of the tens of thousands of hospitality businesses operating across the country, will likely find genuine value in it. The Bromley pub that saved £2,500 a year is better off for having participated in the trial. These are real outcomes and they should not be dismissed. But the announcement of a £350,000 tool as a headline response to a $170 million crisis reveals something about this government's current limitations, the gap between its ambitions and its immediate capacity to deliver relief at scale. This story will continue to develop. Energy prices do not appear to be coming down anytime soon. The situation in the Middle East remains volatile, and the pressure on Britain's hospitality sector is going to intensify before it eases. That is it for today. Take a breath, stay informed. The energy crisis is not going away, and neither are we. If this video gave you something to think about, please subscribe to British Energy. Every single subscription genuinely helps this channel grow and keeps independent political commentary like this alive. There is a great deal more to come, and you will not want to miss what's next.